Welcome, viewers, to this video, which is a recreation of a sermon I presented last Sunday, the 12th of July in 2020 in Grants Pass, Oregon, to a Unitarian Universalist fellowship there, which I presented over Zoom, but which I messed up on badly by repositioning my camera at one point, not pointing at me. So it was a bust in some ways, but this is for all of you. This is for my congregation that might tune into this. This might be for you who have tuned into it. I'll light a little flaming chalice here as a ritual element. And proceed to share pretty much what I had intended to share there, perhaps a little longer because I had to foreshorten that other Zoom event. In any case, welcome. This will be about a 30-minute talk. I barely know some of the people in my own congregation, and I probably don't know some of the people that might be tuning into this. That's okay. These days in the United States, here in Oregon especially, people are sheltering in place in their own homes, and I'm in my office all by myself, so it's just me and you here. And the title of the talk is Gladly Alone Together. It's much better to be gladly alone than fitfully or resentfully or or angrily. There's a lot of ways to be together that don't fit, but gladly is a good one. So let's be glad that even though we're alone, we're still together. As a congregation, as a culture, in our society, as a country. Who am I, and why would you listen? Let me clarify that. People who don't know me at all may tune into this. Let me take the camera, and it's going to shake you around a little bit when I do this, but I wanted to show you a little bit about my my reading and my credentials. So here we go. I'm showing you now. This is my reading I've been doing this fall. Will Durant from his series, marvelous series, Christ in the Church, about old Rome and the way they treated people so barbarously there. There's Thomas Jefferson to talk on him. There's a book I couldn't finish, The Historical Atlas of American Indians. It's too sad and depressing. Another one, The Untold History of the United States. Peter Kuznick is the main writer there. Oliver Stone has his name on it too. Encounters in a New World. These are documents from our founding of our country and then showing how we came in with various pieces of paper saying basically we can take your land now. Also by Jill Lepore, she edited the other one, is New York Burning, an absolutely horrible account of the actual burning to death of people in New York City during a supposed slave uprising. The Uninhabitable Earth, our ecological situation. It's Up to the Women, a marvelous book written by Eleanor Roosevelt back in the 40s with straightforward advice to women on how to be a good person at that time. The Biology of Belief, Bruce Lipton. And here's the ones I really want to zoom in. Hardwiring Happiness and Born to be Good. And similarly, a book called The Master Game, which I started 50 years ago and am just now finished it. Let me show you some other books here. This is a project I'm working on, a book I want to write, and a part of the book has to do with early historical Christian documents, why some ideas prevailed and some didn't, and what might have been a better case. Elaine Pagels is a marvelous scholar who brings obscure information to our popular reading. There she is again, 3 books by her, Beyond Belief and the Gnostic Gospels and Reading Judas. I have some others. A book about Origen, 4th century. First Principles, Early Christians again, the Confessions of Saint Augustine, crucial turning point. The Trinitarian controversies, Augustine again. Here's the other book by Elaine Pagels, Origin of Satan. The New English Bible is the main Bible I use when I'm using the Bible. Things like that. So that's some of the books that I have been working with. This is when I push the camera in the wrong spot on the Zoom service that I'm recreating here today. So what's the point of my showing you all these books? What I didn't point to was the credentials up on the wall here, the bachelor's degree, the master's degree at a seminary, then at the University of Chicago. Very rich experience. Fellowshipping with the Unitarian Universalist Association, the Humanist Institute. I became a humanist leader. An award for having stimulated growth here in Southern Oregon. A thing from Al Gore, the Climate Reality Corps. These are various things that show that I have some experience and some credentials, but the point I want to make about all of that is that so what? So what I've read? So what credentials I might have? The ministry can be very pretentious, and I don't want to be that. I do not want to embody that kind of a stance. The point is not me and what I know and what I've done and what robes I might have and so forth. The point is, who are you? And how can this little talk help you be gladly alone together with your circle of influence, your congregation perhaps, your family, your community, our nation, this world? Who are you and how are you? That's the important thing. In our heritage, Ralph Waldo Emerson, he says, books, when you just speak from books, you're babbling. Don't even talk. You have to speak from experience. He said, always a seer is a sayer. And I've had the privilege of being able to do that, to try to see and to say in the Unitarian Universalist ministry for 50 years, the things that I thought were pertinent to either the persons there or to the culture that I was attempting to speak to through the congregation. So I'm grateful for my tradition and for the people I barely know sometimes. And I hope that this can help, because we're in a predicament together. Being alone together is far wider than just with a congregation, just with a family. It's much larger. Now, doing this via Zoom or via YouTube is not as good as being together in a room. I admit that. But this is an advantage. Anyone can find this, and I can reach to you through this mechanism. I live in Ashland, Oregon, Southern Oregon, almost in California. Sunny Ashland, Oregon, not like upstate Oregon. And there was a survey recently about how are you doing during this COVID crisis, and everybody's sheltering in place. And my response was, I'm seeing that I in my town is more friendly than ever. There's more eye contact, even if it's over the top of a mask. There's respect for each other out there doing whatever we're doing, whether it's tending someone in a store or whatever it is. I notice people out for walks on trails with their family, with the dog, having a different sort of life than we were involved in prior to this sheltering in place business. So there's more time for family, there's more time for peace, there's more time for beauty and art, there's more time for nature, and all these things are good. We're human beings that need this kind of thing. Now, I miss a friendly town that's full of cars and activity. I miss the tavern where we can do karaoke and whatnot. And there's mask bandits everywhere. But how to look at these people with masks? Are they to be feared as if they're infected or maybe a wacko? Or are they to be greeted in some sort of a mutuality that we're all involved in? This COVID-19 crisis came upon us on top of the regular troubles that we're dealing with. on top of the racism, on top of the police overreaction and violence, on top of climate change. It's on top of the negativity that's been thrust into our society. I'm remembering Newt Gingrich and his advice on how to be persistently negative about someone in order to bring them down, which works evidently. The Tea Party with their belligerent stance, the Trump belligerence, the hostility towards marginalized people. People being angry about having to wear a mask and shouting their anger and their spit in your face while they talk about defending their freedom. Oh, lions and tigers and bears, oh my, it's a scary time. Oh, but speaking of bears, my son and I went on a nice long walk behind town here, and we encountered 3 bears, a big black mama bear and 2 big chubby cubs. They looked at us, we looked at them. They went their way, we went ours. It felt like an epiphany. Let me lay another image for this sermon in your heart. There was an NPR radio show talking about all the horrible things we're enduring right these times, but somehow in the director's booth they messed up, and there was a double up of the soundtrack covered up by a lovely violin track. And that's hard times. We can be calm and happy and helpful with each other in the midst of it all, no matter how difficult it has become. In the Sierra magazine recently, I read by Kate Golden, a sentence popped out at me. Paranoia is as contagious as the virus, but so is joy. How to be glad, even if you're alone, and then how to share and spread that in the ways that you can when you're together with others. So, let me ask a basic question here. Who breathes with more joy? A billionaire or you? Who takes more out of their breath? The billionaire or you? We need to move from the mindset of a policeman's knee on an innocent man's neck, screaming, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe." We need to move from that. We need to move from the people in a hospital that are infected with COVID to say, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe." And we need to move to realizing that I can breathe. You can breathe. You can breathe. Every breath can be mixed with gratitude that you're having it and resolve to do something good with your life. Every day when you get up, you can thank God that you've got the chance to put your feet on the ground and do something that day. Every evening, thank again all the things you got done. In meditation, while you're driving, while you're walking, I can breathe. I can breathe. Well, how to be gladly alone together? I've got an answer. Here it is. Be glad that even in your aloneness, unafraid and alive, you are alive. And then share that. We smile at each other with our eyes over the top of our masks, and we give our strength to others, and therefore we have strength. You give your strength to have it. We can be friendlier. We can have more sympathy and compassion. More fear in our society calls for more bravery, and typically humanity responds with bravery, finally. We are more resourceful than we knew. Humanity gets on top of its crisis, and this is our challenge for our generation and our time. You know, our brain works in such a way as what they call the negativity bias, where we tend to remember the hurts that we've had, and we're wary ever then after, a lot more than we remember the good things that we have that we tend not to notice. So we have these reactionary brains then we get all this trouble on top of it. They say to cover what they call ants, one person calls it ants, the automatic negative thinking, cover it up with 5 times more deliberate positive thinking than that negative thought. You got to savor the good things that come to you and know you're savoring them. Be glad and let it soak in a little bit. Celebrate a little bit. Talk about it to someone. Magnify it a little bit. Because otherwise, the negative aspects of our brain tend to drag us into depression and anger and those things. The situation we're in together in society is, I like to think of it this way. I like to think of our Unitarian Universalism as embodied in the title of the religion, Unitarian Universalist, a key to what we really are. And what we really are is individual, universal units of the universe. You know, Carl Sagan talked about we are stardust, incarnated, come alive. But every time anyone comes alive, they are a unique person. Never before, never again. Not the same as anyone else exactly. So there's 2 aspects of being one that are both present, and you can't escape either side of it. One and one make one. So let me unfold that a little bit. You're individual, you're unique, once only ever. You're precious, and you have at least this one long lifetime. We don't know, maybe there's more, but we have at least this. And in that lifetime, you're never fully known by other people. There's a certain amount of privacy and aloneness in just being alive. That's one side of the one that we are. We're one and unique. But the other side is we are one with the cosmos, with the biosphere, with our culture, with the memes that come down to us during our lifetime, with the ideas and the historical events. We are one with our society, and whether it is the mood of society is suspicious and resentful and angry and attacking, or whether it's full of art and joy and pleasure, depends. I mean, one way or the other, we're one with it. So we're one. We're made up. Our individuality is made up out of connection. So we're related and we're alone. So let's bring that then into the realm of what gets called karma, an Eastern word that people take to mean that you've got a situation, you've got a problem, you've got your life is beset by something, and people say, well, this is your karma. This is due to your past lives and what you did then and what you got to pay it off now. I don't know about all that. I don't know about such supernatural books, the Akashic records and St. Peter's book, any of those things. I think of karma as a way of dealing with your situation, with what you're stuck with, gladly or resentfully. We're dealing with what we're stuck with. You have a certain body, you have certain looks. That brings certain reactions from the world. You have a family of origin, how they treated you, where you were in the family. All of that stuff is what you're stuck with. You have the happenstances that have come to you during your life, when you were a child, when you were older. And out of all this, you form a kind of an ego, kind of a interface between the infinite self that you are in your core of your being and the world and the demands of the world and how you're going to relate to it. So you have an ego. It's not a bad thing to have an ego. We should have egos. And you are your ego. You can't get out of it anyway. So we start from there. So affirm your own ego with compassion, with good intention. And remember that ego rides on self. So give it some space to be, but be able to let it drop. In brain science, they're excited about something called the default mode network, which is basically the parts of the brain that give you the sense of I am. I have a certain name. I have certain ideas. I want to do this. I don't want to do that, and so forth and so on. And when you're not busy being distracted by the world and just sitting ruminating, it goes and goes and goes, doesn't it? You try to meditate and you think and think and think. Isn't that the case? But it's okay to let that dissolve, to let that automatic thinking, those sometimes negative thoughts, just let them go. Now, what kinds of negative thoughts or positive thoughts are we going to have depends on our habits. So the Easterners have another interesting word called Sanskaras. Basically, it's the momentum of habit involved in your life, your mental habits. And the mental habits tend to also be biochemical habits. Our circadian rhythm is built into our habits. The momentum of our thoughts propel us along. And there we go. In Sanskara theory, a Sanskara, a habit, is in place and strengthened by thinking about it, and then more so by speaking about it, and then most by doing something with it. And that either strengthens or weakens or initiates or dissolves such a habit. So habit leads to character, and then character leads to the likely associations, involvements, things you're interested in, the people you know in your life, and those various involvements, and that leads to the various situations you're in, and then that feeds back to you as your feelings. So sanskaras leads to character, leads to effects on your world, and then the feedback from the world, and because of how you were, what your character was, and that's karma. You're in your karma. So here's some advice with the karma. Go ahead and meet everyone, all, as an opportunity, an adventure in experience, a chance to be a little bit newer than you knew you were. A chance to serve often is a good way to go, not thinking about what am I wanting, what am I demanding, how am I being served all the time. That gets no pleasure at all. Finally, it's a losing game. But to be of service to others. We have love by giving love. We don't go begging and expecting and conniving to get other people to take care of us and then feel like we're loved. No, it just doesn't work. You got to give it to have it. You have gladness by deliberately and repeatedly choosing happiness. Here's another Eastern word, this one Chinese, the Tao, T-A-O. You have the Tao, that's like the ineffable, hard to describe presence of things as they come through us, and we go with them. We let it flow, we flow with it. It comes before you, it's going to last after you, but while you're alive, you can be part of it. Now, in our Western tradition, we've been told a lot of thou shalt nots. Shall not do this, shall not do that, so forth and so on. But we could also frame those as thou shalt live in peace. Thou shalt live in happiness. I had the opportunity to sit with Thich Nhat Hanh a couple times. And at one time, he explained the Buddhist understanding of Dharma, which is like their law, how things work. He says, it's not so much a system of what's wrong and how can we judge you for having done it and then how can you get punished for it, so much as a system of laws. This is how things work. If you want to be an enlightened person, you're not likely to get there by lying and stealing and injuring and killing. No. And a person who is enlightened doesn't want to do those things. So to bring it back to a Western frame of mind, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, is not an external thy. It is an internal thy. It is your own best, most pristine, most honest self, seeking to have your way in life. And you need to follow that. You need to trust it and go with it. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. This is very pure because thou art thy, not just some irrelevant person. So, are you alone and maybe lonely? Well, then I'd say reach out to others. Be and give the love that you want, and you'll live in it. I had a marvelous mentor, Arvind Vasavada, Dr. Vasavada. He had studied with Carl Jung. He and I spent some years together in Chicago. And he was an analyst, and people would come to him. I would go to him. He didn't make me pay. But I'd come with all sort of, riled up about something. Some thoughts were bugging me, or some feelings I was afraid to see, and so forth. And he would say, be in it. So simple. Be in it. Dare to face it honestly, creatively, live up to it as best you can. And if you fail, if you have regrets, you have things in your life that you've done, you can't go back and change them now, well, learn something from it. Yes, don't go by it without learning something, but don't live with it forever. Maybe make an apology to someone. Maybe forgive someone. But once you've done these things, Vasavada used to say, now forget about it. And he would go like that. Forget about it. You can't stay stuck in the automatic negative thoughts, the guilt, the remorse. You have to find a way to say, okay, I could have done better there. I've learned. I'm moving on. Now I'll do better. Don't drag the negative down with you and let it drag you down. Here in my bulky library, I showed you these books and everything. I find that sometimes, even after having read the brain science and so forth, that good advice shows up in the most simple of places. You just have to be awake to see it. One of the ones that surprised me this week was this AARP cover. That's the cover of the current one, and it had an article in there by a guy I like, an actor, Alda from MASH, and Alda, his thing was he's had a passion for laughter and respect and the facts. He was big on science. I am too. No religion, any religion that doesn't incorporate science and scientific method and rational thinking into its stuff is bogus. Be careful of it. You got to be smart. You got to use your brain. It's part of who we are as humans. But anyway, Alda, he's wonderful. He says, ignorance is good if it's coupled with curiosity. And he says, you have to surf the uncertainty. Nice playful image of, we're not quite sure how we should be. We got to kind of make it up as we go, but go ahead and surf it, ride on top of it. In another article in that same issue, and if you get that magazine, I encourage you to read this one especially, Happiness in Hard Times. Read it carefully. They point out that after 9/11 here in this country, people actually, a few months later, felt they had more gratitude, they had more hope, they had more kindness, even after that horrendous attack on those buildings and all that massive death and so forth. More acute than what we're suffering now, but not as big as what we're suffering now with COVID. They went from personal fear and tragedy to having empathy for others who have it worse, perhaps, who also have it bad. We're in this together, so we do what we can for each other. They went from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, to what they call PTG, post-traumatic growth. I'm not saying you don't feel the sadness, the pain, the worry, the financial upset. I'm saying, yes, we have all that. We have to face all that. But we feel it, and then we don't let that be the rule of everything we do with all our breaths. We feel the bad, but we consider what's good, and then we dare to go towards that, to savor it, to sing, to skip, to whistle. A line that came out of that article that I like was, we get so used to the good stuff in our lives that we forget to immerse ourselves in it. And we have so much good stuff in our lives, even with these new restrictions. we're used to the bad stuff, and we're used to a brain that tends to react to that. You know, we have the news every night. We have drama tends to settle on all kinds of conflict and trouble. We have the events in our life that just bug us. We're used to the bad stuff, but we have to work at the happiness, like I was saying earlier. You have to deliberately ensconce it in yourself. You have to give yourself permission to be glad. You connect with others. You consider what's important. You savor the good things that you do get out of life, even if it's just your breath. The other thing that was interesting in that article was that they call the U curve. Life satisfaction, we're happy when we're kids usually, but then as we approach middle age, things get difficult and challenging, and we tend to get more depressed and beset. But then as we age, we tend to get better again. Older people get better, especially if you keep yourselves fit physically. You get good exercise where you actually huff and puff and sweat and get your heart rate up nice and high a few times a week. Push those muscles so they really strain, so you get some of those muscles, the chemistry out of using your muscles helps counter depression. We want to keep ourselves physically well. We want to get good sleep. We want to eat good, clean food. It's pretty low on the food charts. The more fruits and vegetables, the better you're going to be. And we want to keep ourselves socially connected. And boy, is that hard. One of my dear congregants is down in Southern California. She's 98. And she told me, I had a nice long phone call with her the other day, that she's been days and days and days in a room where no one can come in it other than the nurses, to do their daily check on her. The family can come by and she looks at them through a window. Well, who gets touched? We need touch. We need communion with each other. It's one of the things that makes for a happy life. And in our families where we're pretty sure no one has caught a virus because they're careful about how they went out, we should have ample touch, ample happiness. Really take the time to change this challenge moment into a moment of family fun, meaning, stories. Pull out the pictures, make a game. People across the street, they're out frequently. The children are playing basketball, shooting the hoops, and sometimes the parents come out and do it too. That's good. These articles mentioned that they're finding that there's actually a lot of genes in us that are involved in happiness. We have hundreds of happiness genes that are built in, that are ready to be activated and could be activated. I would hope that from hearing this talk, you're reminded that you have it within you to be glad. And even if you're alone, we're in this together. A lot of us are alone. We're in this together. So do what works for you. Find your way and savor it, magnify it. Be careful of the negativity and drinking too much or getting too angry or getting too paranoid. Try not to do those things. Do what works for you that makes you happy, that makes people around you happy. Try it a new way. Smile. One of the best meditation techniques I've run into is called the inner smile. You're sitting in meditation and you're enjoying your meditation and you smile inside your face without moving your face. See what that does to your overall system when you do that. Well, since I'm going longer than I did with the Zoom meeting with my congregation, let me add some comments that I picked up from Craig Hamilton, a meditation teacher. He's talking about love. He says, love is so much more than a feeling, even though it does have a lot of beautiful feelings associated with it. Faith in love means that whether or not I feel particularly loved, or whether I'm particularly loving, or anything in particular, I know what this ability to be authentic and loving is all about, and I'm going to stand up with it. I'm going to stand for that. We don't need to feel a certain way. We know what's so, we're going to stand for it. We've gone beyond needing to feel it, to get it, because we can give it. This is tremendously liberating if we really do it. Because it means you have an expression of love doesn't depend on anything other than you deciding to be an expression of love. It doesn't depend on you feeling a particular way. What a relief. Love is available endlessly. Alma, the hugging saint, she's hugged something like 30 million people now. She keeps giving and giving and giving. There's no running out of it. So let me close this talk with an image that we used in the thing. I don't have the music lined up here, but let me tell you a story. It was so interesting to me. In 1969, the Beatles had it, especially with each other. They had a world tour that was a lot of fun, no doubt, and magnificent music. I still marvel at the diversity of music they came up with, but they were dissolving, basically. And it had been a long, cold, lonely winter. All was going wrong. And George Harrison, the one you don't usually hear from so much, the more philosophical one, he skipped a stressful business meeting and he went to his garden. And there he came up with the words to the song, Here Comes the Sun. He went over to Eric Clapton's house. I didn't know they were friends, but they were evidently. He borrowed Eric Clapton's guitar and he came up with the music, Here Comes the Sun. John Lennon had been in a car crash, so he wasn't involved in creating that song. But he was there for the recording of it. And when they recorded it, it was their last time together. Their last time created that beautiful song. So this line out of this article really struck me good. It says, "From such tension was composed one of the happiest songs of our life." And they use Here Comes the Sun when someone's being released from the hospital with having lived through the COVID ordeal. And they get to go out and they play the song and everybody kind of is happy together, including the staff of the hospital, because they need that relief. They need that reinforcement, that happiness, just as much as the patient does and the family does. So, I don't know, try singing it together. Look it up on the YouTube and sing along. Smile when you do it. Practice smiling. We are gladly alone together if we can create that gladness in ourselves. So carry this gladness in you and then give it out to others when you can, and you can. So thank you for joining me for this little talk. If you stayed all the way to the end, this long talk. I hope it gives you something. The point is not the exact things I say so much as the thing that occurs to you while you're listening. Something that helps, something you can carry with you so that you can move through this world a little bit gladder than you were before. I'm going to reach over here and get my chalice, my flaming chalice. I can breathe. You can breathe. Precious oxygen comes from the plants, from the phytoplankton in the ocean, and from the plants and the trees and the leaves. They're exhaling oxygen. That oxygen comes in. I can breathe. Precious oxygen flows into my lungs. It gets into my blood. My heart pumps that blood all the way down through these elaborate set of tubes to the smallest one, where only one blood cell can get by a cell that needs that nutrient. And there, that oxygen goes into that cell and it fires it off. It's called being alive. There it burns easily and well. We are all our own flaming chalice. And so when we shine, we help others shine too. May it be so. Sorry, I can't figure out how to stop it now. Stop recording. That'll do. Bye-bye, folks. Thanks for listening.